You're listening to Guts and Grind with Siju and Sajin, making the real estate journey accessible to anyone.
All right, welcome back again, guys. This is another episode of your Guts and Grind podcast, your real estate journey here. We're on episode 37, and I'm joined with my co-host, Sajin Abraham.
Hello. How's it going, y'all? Thanks for clicking. We love it. We appreciate you. And we're here.
And we need more of it.
Good episode. Say it again.
I said, and we need more of it.
Exactly.
Awesome, man. Yeah, just wanted to say hi to you guys. And we are in our series of, once the offer's been accepted, we're just kind of continuing that journey. And this week's episode is all about renegotiations. If you didn't join last week, it's basically covering in the inspection period, how you find issues using an inspector. And so this week, when we find those issues out of the house, what are we doing with it? We say to go ahead and renegotiate it, right? So take those issues, use it as a leverage for negotiating the price, negotiating credits, whatever it is. And so basically we're going to be discussing how to negotiate those issues that were identified from the report. Saj, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Let's just dive into it. So as Siju was saying, like the previous episode, we're assuming that you're using an inspector and they'll provide a report, right? And so you create a punch list based off of that report. Just to play devil's advocate, let's say that you don't use an inspector and there's some glaring items in the house that you say, all right, man, the carpet's really dated, or like that toilet's clearly broken, or look at the roof, it's so whatever, right? You could go to the seller and say, hey, these are the issues that I've identified. The benefit of having an inspector, it's a third party that has no interest in, like they don't care about the buyer or the seller. I mean, they're working for the buyer because you pay for their services, but they have a obligation to just be honest and say, hey, this is what I'm identifying. So that it puts a little bit of weight on what they're identifying as issues, has a little bit more weight to it because they don't benefit from reducing the selling price, right? And so the seller knows that as well. So if you come in there equipped with that, you're in a better position to say, hey, these are the issues I've identified, and I'd like to just present it to you and say, hey, let's have a conversation about how we can use this to reduce the price or even just change up the terms a little bit to make it more appealing for both of us. Any thoughts on that? Any additional insight?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's basically, like you said, Saj, it's not from the point of view of Siju or Sajin or the seller, right? It's not a biased opinion, right? That's why having a third party inspector is always better than you inspecting the house yourself, right? And those are coming from guys that are actually following code, right? Property code that's in your city, in your state. They're abiding by things that are factual. There's no subject to any opinions involved in this inspection, right? So taking that hard set facts, and then on top of that, taking the report that they send you, right? They'll give you a report. Generally what the inspector does is they start taking pictures. They take pictures of everything that they have issues with, issues or non-issues, or potentially could be issues. My inspector takes pictures of stuff that's even could be potential issues.
Right.
And on the report, he says, and everybody does their reports differently, but they'll send a full, 15, 20 page report of every room, every appliance that was tested, device, AC unit, you name it, everything. And my inspector generally highlights it in like just neon blue, like glaring, issues, right? And what I like to do is I like to use that as proof. And I get that report, I don't give them the full report, right? I give them the screenshot of the areas that are potentially issues. And I list that in an email. I put that, I go through and just generate an email. And I'm like, hey, these are the issues. I'll send it to my agent, or I'm usually the agent, but whatever, you can even pass that to your agent actually. And the agent can actually leverage that and say, hey, this is one of the concerns that I want to address. You as a buyer, you can always say, I want to negotiate the roof. The roof is on its last leg. There's leaks in the house. We can maybe try to negotiate something. So I take that report, literally, like I'll screenshot it and I'll screenshot certain, the major issues piece of it and send it out. That way the seller and the agent for the seller knows that this is not, so-and-so's opinion about the house, right? This is something that's legit and it's legitimate and could be worth negotiating for.
No, for sure. And I think that those are great points. And I think in the past episodes, we kind of hinted at it's important to be creative, right? And so it doesn't always have to be about money, right? Like, hey, reduce the price because of this, but maybe you could have different terms where, I mean, really anything, right? Like it could be money, it could be a money factor, it could be like more time to purchase it and stuff. And also when you present these issues, it kind of paints a picture of like, hey, this house is not going to be as easy to sell as you might think it is, because these are just general report. It's not my opinion. It's a third party report that's saying this stuff. Right. And so it's in your interest to work with me because I'm still willing to buy the house. Like don't kill the deal and move on to someone else because you're just wasting more time as a seller. As a seller is wasting more time putting it back on the market. They do the same report. They find the same issues. Like it's just, you don't want to burn time because those people that are selling want to sell. It's on the market because they want to sell. Right. And so it's an idea of being creative and saying, hey, you know, like, let's not veer off the path, but like, let's make this work to where we both win, right? You want to sell the house and I want to buy the house, but like, let's come to terms based off of what this report is saying.
Yeah, and great point, Sajin. And I'll give a quick negotiation 101 tip, you know, and it's basically that you've already got your offer accepted, right? So the initial offer has been already kind of accepted. So the seller's not generally going to back out because they're already they've accepted your offer and they've bought into a 5 to 10 day option period. So they're already committed, as Saj said, to a certain amount of time to take the house off the market. So right. Honestly, you should ask for whatever you can ask for. I mean, as far as credits, because the worst they can, what I tell my kids is ask for whatever you want, because the worst they can say is what? No. Right. I mean, if you never ask, you'll never know. So I throw the kitchen sink at them literally, you know, and I'm like, I want a credit on this, you know, or take this much off the sales price, you know, add this credit on there, whatever you think is valid, right? As far as an ask. And if it's even, you know, they can even repair it if that's what it is, you know, just provide me proof of that you've repaired this, fixed it, show me the, you know, the proof and the pictures. I'm okay with that too, right? So at that point, you know, they've already accepted your offer, and trust me, the last thing they want to do is renege out of this contract that they've already invested 2 more weeks into. So
right,
and it doesn't look good on the market either. So a house goes on contract, then gets pulled off, and then re-put back on the market again. Trust me, people that are buying are seeing this too.
So with that said, like I'm always looking at houses and I see one it's like always under contract, back on the market, under contract, back on the market. And I'm like, what is going on? Yep. Like, is there something wrong with the house? And like, cause it makes it look like, hey, I like that house, but now I don't like that house. Cause like how many people have cycled through it and found that same issue. And now it's just been on the market for hundreds of days. Right. I mean, it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's just kind of crazy. So you only be mindful of that, even for sellers out there. If you're a seller, be mindful of what you're doing. Cause like people are watching, you know, be like investors and buyers and stuff, they're watching and they're seeing like these patterns. And so if you see this pattern, like they could only question like, well, there has to be something wrong with that, and just totally ignore your property. So it kind of works on both ends, right? Like you want to be a good seller and be mindful of that. And you also want to be a good buyer and, you know, just kind of know what you're getting yourself into.
Yep. I agree. So, I mean, you have the upper hand again. They bought into your deal. Obviously, if there's issues, you know, bring it up to then they probably already know it, honestly. And they're probably trying to just, you know, trying to unload it. So trust me, a lot of the buyers know what's wrong with their house generally. Right. They're not like an outside investor or something like that, but you know, ask for whatever's on the report. And most times they'll just try to meet you in half, right? So generally what for me anyway, so what's my experience has been is like, if I ask for $3,000 in credit, they'll say, I'll give you $1,500, you know, fine. I'll take that over, you know,
something.
It was cheaper than what it was before, you know? So,
right, exactly.
And so, you know, it's just, you know, you got to kind of take those into fact, and then just, you know what the issues are, you can kind of, as you get experience also, you'll know, hey, how much certain things cost, and you can kind of ballpark some of that as well.
Oh yeah, that's all good stuff. I totally agree. Yeah. So I mean, I guess just to wrap things up, don't be afraid to renegotiate. I know you walk into a contract and say, all right, I said that I'll pay this much money. But again, like we said in previous episodes, it's about creativity. And, you know, at the end of the day, you have to worry about your bottom line, right? So whatever you can save, you should. And like you said, like if you don't ask, you'll never know. And so don't be afraid of that, because everyone knows the game. Everyone knows that, like, you say a price, and if you could justify why, and that's what that inspection report is so important. If you could justify, hey, I want a $3,000 reduction because of A, B, and C, who could refute that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, someone could be a jerk and say, you know what? I agree that these issues are issues, but I don't care. I'm going to try my luck. And at least, you know, and at least you tried, right? but they're still committed to that contract. And you have the right to say, all right, you're not going to give me the $3,000. You're not going to give me anything. And then you have the upper hand. You could say, well, I agree to it. I'll just buy it. Or you could say, you know what, like, give me my earnest money back and, we'll move on. So
What
it
one
just gives you a bit of freedom.
one more thing I want to add to that is, on top of the negotiations, right? Like, I mean, how do you pull these numbers as far as what costs or what? You and I have been obviously did a few properties, and so we kind of know some ballpark costs for certain items, right? So it also is important that you have either a contractor or just somebody that's handy that knows, hey, what are some of the ballparks, or can get you a ballpark number, so that way you're not just pulling out arbitrary numbers.
Sure.
I know that, if you can get an actual quote, I've done that before with houses with foundation issues. So again, within your option period, I know we didn't mention this, but factor in that you may need to get in a third party vendor. So again, bringing up the importance of time sensitivity, get that inspector in there first. If you can get them the first 2 days, buys you some time. Hey, if you find a foundation issue, you can get a foundation guy in there later, right? So you got a foundation guy in there, he can get you his quote. You can send that to the seller. But the importance of time sensitivity is very big on this, and having your contractors or whoever else to get you quotes on those issues is going to be very key too. I forgot to mention that, but
no, that's a good one. And it kind of reminded me of something too. Like, a good way of presenting it is, my contractor will pay me this, because like people will refute, right? They'll say, oh, like $3,000, I could get it done for $1,000.
Yeah.
I know you could get it done for 1,000, but you didn't. You
Yeah.
didn't get it done for 1,000. And if you want to, go ahead and get it done. But my contractor, when I get it done, they're going to charge me this much. And so
Yep.
that's why it's another element of like negotiation, to be able to say, hey, this is why I'm asking for this reduction. You want
Yep.
to prove why you're saying. You don't want to just pull out numbers out of nowhere. I remember buying cars with my dad, like when I was younger, and the way it was very embarrassing, because it was just like, how low, like, I mean, like, he's cutting the cost for no reason, but he got it to work. I mean, like, he was just willing to be like, hey man, I know you're selling it for 20,000, but I want it for 10. And then they get it for 15. I'm like, whoa, like, you made this a crazy request. And like, I'm not saying like, don't do that, but I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be able to justify like why I'm trying to reduce the price. Right.
Good luck on getting a car for $5,000 cheaper now.
I know. Now it's a different world now, man. We're living in a different world.
No, you know what that is? It's accessibility to information.
Yeah.
I think the world now, like back then, I think people knew, like, oh yeah, you go to the car dealership, you already knew they had it marked up to $3,000 over sticker price. So people go in and just negotiate, right? And they just try to get there. But now I think people have accessibility to so much information, right? That you can do so much research on your own. Like, I mean, I feel like you have the power of data to kind of get all that information. So
yeah, and I guess to drive in the point, like, use that to your advantage.
Oh yeah,
like, we have what we have now, so use it to your advantage, and like, justify why you're looking for these reductions. And don't be afraid to renegotiate. I mean, at the end of the day, you're the only one looking out for you.
That's
you shouldn't have to look out for the seller. They'll be fine. They have the representation, they can handle it, but you got to look out for you. So don't be afraid to do it.
That's the quote of the episode. Only you're going to be looking out for yourself. So
well, awesome. All right. So I guess we'll wrap this one up. Thanks for watching. As always, we really appreciate you clicking, and you made it to the end. This is the end of the episode. So we really, really appreciate you watching all the way to the end. Make sure you like it, share it with your friends, subscribe, leave comments. We love hearing comments. So please, like, let us know what you're thinking. And on that note, I guess we'll catch you on the next one.
Take care, guys.
Thanks for listening to Guts and Grind with Siju and Sajin. Be sure to tune in next time.